Welcome to episode 5 of the Bulls REKAP Podcast. I'm Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times. You could obviously read me in the Sun-Times. You could follow me on at J Cowley Hoops on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It's not a fun follow, but do that at your own risk. But fun guest tonight. Excited about bringing this guy in, the Vooch, Bulls center Nikola Vucevic. So excited to have him in. Vooch, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for doing this. Hey, I mean, there's a lot of different topics to cover with you, but the one thing that struck me is there's a lot of NBA players, especially when you see them win championships. You hear guys say, I should never be here. I don't belong here. And they talk about their road there. When I look at what you went through just to get to USC, I mean, there's like a 2 or 3 year window there when you were coming up, that you have to be like looking back and saying, yeah, you guys had tough journeys, but my journey was really just unfathomable. First of all, a lot of people don't know you probably were 15 or 16 and your team, and I think your dad are in probably one of the biggest train accidents in Europe in 20, 30 years. Is Bioce, is that how you pronounce the city?
Yeah, Bioce, yeah.
Bioce, the train derailment. And this is before you even sent to the United States to play 1 year of, I think you played 1 year of high school basketball. When you look back on that, how much form does that put into your mindset and how that built you up as a person? I mean, because that's something that, to me, you just never, ever – it's always there. It's always in your head. I mean, there were 200-some injuries, 40, 50 deaths. I mean, it was a big accident.
It was a huge tragedy for our country. A lot of people lost, their lives. A lot of families have been affected by that. There were some even babies that passed away on that train. So it was a huge tragedy. In all honesty, I think because I was much younger then, it doesn't come to my mind as much, and obviously as well because I came out of it with no major injuries, nothing that has affected my life going forward. Same for my father. We had a couple injuries that lasted for a couple of weeks, and luckily we got away with it. But there have been many people that it's completely changed their lives. Obviously, people that have lost close relatives, or people that have had some major injuries which has affected their life, on a daily basis. And I'm sure for them it's much tougher to deal with all that. And obviously, you think about it, every year on January 23rd, you think about that. I see a train, I'll think about it. When I go home, if I drive by there, I think about it. So there are times where I think about it, but I think, thank God, I didn't have any major injuries, anything that affected me long term, and I was able to kind of, get over it and move on, and obviously have a great life.
Yeah. Did your dad ever talk to you about how did it affect your guys' relationship in somehow? Because you're a dad now,
yeah,
3 sons, and when I think about that, if I went through something like that with my son, I would be like, you would just be like, you got to be touched by an angel. You got to be touched by something, whatever high power you believe in. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the first when it happened, the first thing for me that I wanted, that I thought of because I think I had passed out during the whole crash at some point, and when I woke up and when I was able to get up from under all the debris that was over me, the first thing I looked for was my dad, and then once I saw him. It was such a huge relief for me just to see that he was okay. And so that helped a lot. And we spoke about it over the years, about what happened, what it meant and everything. And but like I said, I think that because we were very fortunate to not have any major injuries or anything that's affected our life that much, we're kind of able to, put it away and not think about it, not mention it too much. And luckily, a lot of great things have happened to us as a
Right.
family after, and so you don't want to think about it too much. As there are times, like I said, that we do think about it, we do talk about, and we're obviously very aware of how blessed we were to go, to come out of that alive. First of all, not many people have, and so but it was a huge tragedy, and I think just over time you learn to live with it, deal with it. Some people obviously probably have a much harder time. Some people have to deal with it on a daily basis much more than we do, and but yeah, it was a huge tragedy, and something that's gonna stay unfortunate in our history for a long time.
So soon after that, you guys probably as a family make the decision to send you to the United States to play. I think it was a year of prep high school basketball.
Yep.
And I'm guessing your English was probably not the. I think I remember talking about this one time. I think Serbian and your French was really good because you were in Belgium.
Yeah.
Did either your parents come with you, or did you just go and they were going to join you later? I mean, how did that work out?
My dad came with me for I
Okay.
want to say 2 weeks. Yeah, he wanted to come here, see where I was going, what I was like that looking like, kind of try to help me get settled. And then he left, and so when I was leaving, obviously I knew it was hard. I was going away, and I was going to be there by myself. But it didn't totally hit me until the day he left.
Right. Yeah.
Because he was there
Yeah.
with me. We were kind of going through it. I was excited. I
And
was
he
in
had
Los
always coached
Angeles.
you. He had always kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
he coached me for 4 years before that.
Yeah.
Obviously, and I was very excited. I was in Los Angeles. You know, it's LA, it's Hollywood, it's the Lakers, it's the palm trees, it's like the ocean,
Yeah.
everything that you
Yeah.
see on movies. And so I was super excited. I landed, I see the big LAX sign. I'm like, this is LA. This is amazing. But then, like once he left, like 2 weeks later, that's when it hit me that it's just me, just me by
Yeah.
myself. And back then, you didn't have like internet everywhere. It wasn't like you have your phone. You could just have.
Right.
Nowadays, people can communicate internationally through WhatsApp, through all these different apps. Back then, you couldn't do that as much, so it was much tougher. But yeah, I remember the day when he left. It was very emotional for me. But it was a lot. The thing that helped was a lot of guys there from France that joined our team. A couple of them. So me knowing French helped, and we all kind of were dealing with the same thing, being away from our families, far away, at a similar age, and so that kind of helped the transition. But it was tough, and I mean, it was still tough to this day when we leave. When my wife and I and the kids leave Montenegro at the end of every summer to come here. It's tough, and for them, it's probably even tougher now because I have grandchildren and they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll see them. They only see them in the summer when they come to visit us, but it's not unlike it's not consistently. So I think it gets harder for them as well.
So then, okay, so it's okay. You're going through all that. And then obviously USC is the college of choice. You go there, and I'm sure it was, first of all, the NCAA clearinghouse messed with you for what, I think 8 to 10 games or something like
8 games, yeah. I was suspended for
Yeah.
8 games, yeah.
Okay, so you're dealing with that. That probably sucks. And then at the same time, at that time, now that was the same year DeMar comes, right?
Yep.
And I don't think people realize at the time, DeMar, recruit wise, that was a huge get for USC. I mean, DeMar was one of the it guys in high school basketball. And he brings little Romeo with him.
Yeah.
So, and that was part of his deal. I remember talking to him about this. He wasn't going to go to college unless it was, who was it, Master P, the rapper Master P, his son, Little Romeo, unless Little Romeo, his guy, could also get I don't know if it was a full scholarship, whatever. He got him in there. So at that time on campus, obviously the USC football program is what it is. You're dealing with your stuff, and then you're in this setting that probably was as Hollywood as it comes for the basketball program because you have DeMar, who was the it guy, and he brings little Romeo. Was that like overwhelming at the time? I would imagine. Or were you like, cool, this is what I came here for, this kind of vibe?
No, it was more like cool, like this is, kind of is more than I expected because very, very few teams in Europe have, the facilities that like colleges have. You know, like at
Right.
USC at that time, they just built the Galen Center, brand new arena. I would think it was 1 year old, brand new practice facility. You have access to it 24/7. You're getting especially that year because Demar was there. We got a whole lot of Nike gear, and in Europe, we had it, but it wasn't like it was hard to get good sizes. It was
Right.
hard to
Right.
get the
Right.
good stuff. It didn't have it. So for me, I get there the first day. They give me this huge bag. It was a huge well, it was like a trash bag, huge trash bag, and then they're like, "Hey, here's your gears, two of them." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And so I open it, and one of them is just a bunch of shoes, and the other one is just a bunch of like Nike sweats, shorts, t-shirts. I've never, I mean, I've had, I would live pretty good growing up because my dad played. I mean, it wasn't like close to NBA money, but we lived pretty well.
Right.
But
Right.
I've never seen that much gear in my life. Like that never happened. Like, and so I was so excited, and like, oh, we have like trainer, we have cold tubs, we have massage therapists, we have food. Like, my dorm is not like we get all this stuff. You're on a college campus, so to me it was like very a lot of exciting stuff, and I'm sure it was hard because I was away from my family. It was me trying to just this foreign guy nobody really knew about. I wasn't like a big time recruit. I was kind of the last scholarship they had, and they just were like, well, we'll go with you. It wasn't like I was a highly sought guy. So there were like obviously some, but I always try to kind of enjoy what it was, and it all worked out in the end. But yeah, it was more so like the exciting part because there's so much going on, and you play the games. There's a
Right.
lot of people. There's media. You're on TV, like things that you just uh, as a young guy in Europe don't really go through as much.
I mean, and that's why like I wanted to bring all that up because you do hear all these NBA guys talk about their story, and to me, yours is absolutely just fascinating for that 3 or 4 year window of
Yeah.
how you got from where you were, which could have been a huge tragedy in your life and was a tragedy for your country, to this kind of crazy lifestyle on USC campus. I mean, it's fascinating. So. The one thing I mean, you brought up Europe, and obviously you've played a lot of international ball and done all that. And one of the things I think people in America don't understand, and I've talked to several Euros about it. Bidham last year, Bidham was talking about it too. I think he was in the German league, and I think you've spoken to it to me before too. When you guys are playing, people hear boo and people hear do their stuff in arenas, but I don't think they realize that it's nothing like the stuff that goes
Yeah.
on in the Euro leagues. Bottles being thrown, and those people get together beforehand and they have their chants all set. They Bidham was telling me they learn everything about you and chant different things about you, family, and I mean, how does that toughen you up? Where people think Euros might be soft, or at least that was a feeling 20 years ago. To me, they come over hardened just because of the leagues they play in and the fan base they have to deal with and the stuff that goes on in some of these gyms.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all the teams, all the countries. It's mainly Serbia. You have two teams that have huge fan base. Greece, same. I'm talking about like EuroLeague, and then Turkey has similar. So it all depends, like where you play and what teams you play for. But yes, some of the couple ones that people keep seeing on internet and to talk about a lot. Yeah, those are pretty intense crowd to play. I never played in one of those like that. I mean, somewhat similar when I was during the lockout, but it wasn't like that. And so yeah, I mean it's different than here. Those teams, but it all depends how you look at it. I think it'd be fun to play in a crowd like that,
Right.
especially obviously if you're the home team, but even if you're the away team, you can feed off of it. I know a lot of guys talk about how they enjoy it, how it's a great crowd. So it's different in here, but here it's more about the fan experience. You have all these things going on in the arena while you're playing, and then here every arena is like 20,000 people. In Europe, some games you can play in front of five, some games it's 15, something like. So it all depends. Some games, so it's very different. The EuroLeague is much better now, but when you play the regular country league, it's not every arena is as good. Some are much smaller, so it all depends. It's not it's not always all the stuff you see, but the teams that have the big fans following, then that's like a big it's a big part of it, and people enjoy doing that, and so yeah, that's definitely very special.
You I've been accused the last couple of years of being the big Vooch defender when it comes to the media and this team. And we've talked about this before, the blame game that goes on. And one of the things you always mention is people on social media is going to be social media, and people are going to say what they want about you on social media. But to your face, everyone has always been very respectful. No one's come up to you and done that. And so here's my whole take on this. And it's funny because this was asked of Zach today, and it was something I wanted to bring up with you. You know, back before I was covering the Bulls, I was doing a column, and I would go cover the NBA Finals when it was the Heatles and LeBron and Bosh and D Wade. And I remember Bosh during those championship runs, he would talk about the sacrifice, and people just don't understand the sacrifice that a big guy has to make when you come to a situation when you have two, elite or two all-star type players in the backcourt. And he had to completely change his entire game. I mean, you talk about a guy that barely shot threes, and then in Miami had to start, just so he can be useful, start shooting threes. When you bring up sacrifice, I don't think they fully understand what you mean by that when you are a big guy in this league and you come to a team that has two backcourt guys. So, because you're reliant on them. They are the quarterbacks. You're the receiver. You get the ball in your hands when it's thrown to you. How have you dealt with that, and how have you come to grips with that? Because it seems like this year it's a whole different ballgame mentally, just everything. I mean, obviously you guys run a different offense, but how tough has that been for you to explain it without it sounding like, well, he's whining or he's making excuses? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely an adjustment. Because in Orlando I was the number one option.
Right.
Almost everything was run for me or through me, and when you do that for so many years, your game gets used to that, and when you go in a different situation where you have to change and play in a different way, it takes time to adjust, and it's you kind of get out of your comfort zone and stuff that you were doing all the time. It was very natural, pretty, not to say easy, but that comes just very naturally to you, and you didn't have to think stuff as much. To where you go in a situation where, like in Orlando, I go in a game, I know I'm getting 15 shots from these spots. Usually we'll run these plays, we'll do this and that, and I'll know. And you kind of go in the game kind of having a plan what you can do. And then for me, the biggest adjustment was trying to figure out my spots, how to, still be close to what I can be, with DeMar and Zach within the new system. So it just took time to adjust. Obviously, I think it didn't help that, I wasn't shooting the ball as well. I think if I had maybe shot the ball better earlier, maybe that would have made the transition easier. But then at times, I probably got into overthinking a little bit. And so, but it was just time for me to adjust, just playing different way, because you don't have the same shots. You don't have the same situation you did. You don't, you rely more on others to get you the ball because you're not the number one option as you were. You weren't the guy, so it's just different, and you have to adjust to that. And it took me some time. It's not easy. I think for a big man, it is a little different because you don't have the ball naturally all the time unless you're Jokic. You depend on others to get it to you. And so for me, it was just very different from what I was used to playing in Orlando. And I knew that was going to happen, and I was fine with it. It just took me some time to adjust. And, there were some good moments, some not as good, but it's just part of it. And but I think as time and years went on, it's helped me develop into a more versatile player that can adjust to different situations, that can play from different positions now. Now I do things that I didn't do as much before, and so it's improved me as a player in the not necessarily in the skill way, but more so in the understanding of the game and understanding how I can still be efficient, how I can still find my ways without having to be the number one guy. And that's something that just took time, and it wasn't always easy, because there's also the ego part, but it was for the greater good of the team, and it was going well, for those 4 or 5 months that we started the season, and so during that time you're just you're understanding that it's for the bigger picture, and you
Right.
accept
You
that,
ride
and
with it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, and eventually, my numbers got very close to what they were, and so yeah, it was just needed time to adjust and find my ways to be the best player I can be within that new system and the new way I was being used.
All right, you tell me if I'm right or wrong. I was looking at your Bulls stay and kind of breaking it down, like as kind of like I ran by Zach today as kind of Dr. Phil. So I thought your first year you came here, it was a great, you come here at the trade deadline. I thought it was just Vooch being Vooch. That was Orlando Vooch. The numbers were the numbers. Then they build this team, and I think, like you kind of touched on, you're not real comfortable with what your role is, but almost like Bosch talked about, you don't get caught up in it because you're winning. So you can't, the win is the most important thing at the end of the day. So I thought that was your first full year here, and I'll go to my grave that if there's no Vooch at the trade deadline, then there's no DeMar and there's no Lonzo. That and Alex and all of that attempt they had to make a run at the Eastern Conference never happens if Vooch is not the first piece. And if fans don't understand that, then they're stupid. Then the year after that, this was my take, that again, you kind of got caught up in, because now Zach gets his max contract, and I think subconsciously, I don't think the relationship between DeMar and Zach ever changed. As far as the friendship, I think those two love each other. But I think subconsciously there was almost as good as they worked together that first year together, it was almost a power struggle of, well, whose team is it? And again, unfortunately, the big man gets caught up in the wash of that. And then last year, it felt like to me that there was a lot weighing on guys because they knew that if this was it, if this didn't work, it was going to be broken up and blown up in some capacity. You started off shooting poorly, and I think you kind of just wore that I got to shoot better, I got to shoot better, I got to shoot better. I don't want this thing to break up. And now this year I see a guy that when I covered baseball, some of the baseball players, they'd go in slumps and they would talk about, they would just take don't give a F attitude anymore. I know what I am. I know the work I put in. I'm not going to get caught up in it. I'm just going to go and have fun and play free. And it seems to me that this year the new offense helps. And I think you have teammates that like Josh Giddey, pass first guy, Lonzo Ball, pass first guy. Zach, I mean, this has been a rebirth for Zach LaVine as far as I'm concerned. And we talked to him about that today, and he was great about it. Where I think you're just in a place mentally where there's just nothing weighing you down now. It's almost Orlando Vooch. What am I missing?
I mean, I get asked that quite a bit this year, but no, I think it was just like you said, like those baseball guys said. I really wanted to kind of put whatever happened last season behind it and not think about it and just move on.
Is that hard to do?
Start fresh.
Is that hard to do?
Yeah, I mean, we as players, for me, for example, I'm my biggest critique. Like I get very hard on myself. Like I critique myself pretty harsh if I don't play well, if I make mistakes, and so like all the outside noise and stuff. I mean, you hear it and you don't. Nobody enjoys hearing negative stuff, but
right.
It's usually nothing compared to what I can tell myself at times. So I just I really like coming into the. Like, because I came really early because of my son started kindergarten, so I had to come very, very early. And I just came in, and I really just wanted to, have a good September with the guys, get to know the new guys, get the new coaches, and kind of looked at it as a fresh start. And I think, in a way, maybe because there were so many changes, coaching staff, player-wise, and everything, it was a new start for everybody. And so I think we just all decided to embrace that and move on from, the last 2 years where we didn't play as well, and move forward. And that's kind of what my mindset was. And the young guys have been great. It was exciting for me to come and see them. I'll be there in September. We had some really good workouts. We played some good pickup. It was competitive, and little things like that we saw just build up good positive energy in me. That it could be a fun year to be part of. Hopefully, we'll play better than people think. But I just saw a lot of hungry guys, a lot of guys that want to prove people wrong, and it's fun to be part of that. And I think it's helped everybody, but it's helped me. And I think obviously having starting a year off well always helps. When you start off on playing good, and to continue to carry on. And so it's just kind of been feeling good and feeling positive. I want to play, and I really just try not to overthink things, not try to think about what happened, because it's happened. I can't change it. I know with me that I was a better shooter than I showed last year. That I can play better than I played. So I wasn't like questioning myself. It was just getting my mindset in the right place, to not overthink stuff, to not just let my instincts do the job. And I think so far it's been good, and hopefully it continues. But I think that's the case for most guys on the team. I think we just embrace this new direction we had, and I think that was the right thing to do for us.
What would it mean for you to make an All-Star game this year with
Yeah,
what you've been through, and now on a new roster from when you made it last time in Orlando?
I mean a lot. I think it's a huge achievement. It's a huge honor to be selected as an All-Star. Yeah, I mean I made it twice. It was it meant a lot to me. It's a big reward for all the work you put in, all the stuff you do on a daily basis, and so yeah, it'd be huge. But I don't think about that right now. It's a very long way off, and
Right.
hopefully I continue to play well. Hopefully we'll play well as a team. We get more wins, and I have a chance, but it's not my main focus at the moment. But of course, I think for every player, I don't care how many times you make it. I think you always enjoy being selected and having that recognition.
I don't think people realize, when we're in the locker room and stuff, I think one of the funnier guys on the team is Dalen Terry, whether he means to be or it's just the stuff he says. I mean, and there was a moment a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was Atlanta. I don't even know, because it's so blurry, that November schedule, which was brutal, where Dalen didn't even know how the team was built, like how you came first, and then DeMar and Lonzo came, and then he was asking, "Well, what we get? What we get for Vooch?" And then people are saying, "Well, because he was asking about why is this possible pick this year? Why is it protected?" And we said, "Well, that's the last part of the DeMar DeRozan trade."
That was in Atlanta, actually. You're right.
Yeah, and he said, "Well, what do we give for Vooch?" And I said, "Vooch was Orlando. There are 2 first-round picks." And he's like, "Who'd they take?" And we're like, "Franz Wagner and who's the other guy? Jet Howard, or I think it was Jet Howard." And he said, "Franz Wagner," and he looked at you and he goes, "Vooch, you got to get the hell out of here." And you even you laughed. But then I said to him, I go, that's the same reaction, that because people think that, first of all, the Bulls were going to draft Franz Wagner, which there was no proof that they would have. And I thought another good point that's been brought up, you don't know if he would have developed the same way. So the idea that people say, well, we could have had this instead of this, it just doesn't. That's fantasy land. It doesn't work that way. But
Yeah,
it was funny.
No, it was for sure. I mean, but that's just the way people are, fans are. Obviously, Franz is an amazing player. Has been playing great for Orlando. Have an amazing year right now. But if the trade doesn't happen, who's to say the Bulls get the pick that Franz is available at? Who's to say they choose him? Who's to say if they do choose him, everything works out the way it did for him in Orlando? There's so many ifs, and what ifs, actually not ifs, what ifs, that it's just I mean, it's just impossible to even comment on it. So I don't get caught up in it. I know fans do and think about it, and wait for the trade didn't happen. But like you said, if maybe the trade doesn't happen, if maybe DeMar doesn't come, maybe Lonzo doesn't, maybe AC doesn't come. So it's hard to say. It's hard, it's easy to, after the fact to comment on it. Maybe we should have done this or that. But, in the moment, I think, everybody thought it was a very good trade. Everybody thought, and, it really looked like it was we had something going that first
Yeah,
year. You know, not to make excuses, but to say that if it was Lonzo we would have been, but now playing with Lonzo, even if he's playing like such limited minutes and everything, um, he was a huge part of our success because he was a great defender, he was a great playmaker, his floor spacing, and so he would have helped a lot. And he was the kind of piece that put us all together. I'm not to say that we would have stayed first in the East and whatnot, and who knows, but it was a big piece that we lost, and I do believe that if he was healthy, that it would have been better. I don't know how much and what it would have looked
right.
like, but I do believe it would have been better. But again, same thing. We can't, dwell on that and be like, well, if Lonzo, it didn't work out, we didn't have the results we wanted. Um, for whatever reason, it is what it is, and we can never know. We will never know if the trade didn't happen, what would have happened. So, and like same for Orlando, if they don't trade me, that obviously they don't get Franz, they probably don't get Paolo next number one pick next year. So it's just the way it happened, and that's just the way it is, and we can't dwell on that.
I look at the Cavs team the last couple of years and the way that team was built, and it's like almost a perfectly built team where you have a superstar, you have front court guys that are defensive minded, you have Okoro who's defensive minded and starting to figure out his 3-point. I mean, they're just, and that's kind of, I felt like what that Bulls team could have if the injuries didn't happen. You had like perfect complementary players where Zach a scorer. Zach didn't have to worry about defense because you had Lonzo. You had, it was just like a perfectly built team that, who knows how far it would have gone. All right, let me get you out of here. Before I do, I like to do a thing called the interrogation room. I'll just do these quick hitting things, and you just tell me first thing that comes to your mind, and have fun with it. Best big man you ever played against. It doesn't even have to be a famous guy. It could just be a guy that growing up was just a badass.
I have to say Jokic or Dirk.
How old were you when you were able to beat your dad? Because I guarantee your dad was not the type that would let you beat him.
No, definitely not. I'm trying to think. I was already. I want to say 17.
And that was a big deal. I'm taking. I'm guessing.
Yes, but I have to say his knees were pretty bad. He couldn't move much, so it wasn't like a full-on one-on-one. It was like kind of in the paint, and no calls were allowed for me. But I think that was the first time I was able to beat him.
Who do you think is the most underrated big man you've played against in the last year?
Underrated?
Yeah, that people wouldn't think about as a problem.
Trying to think.
What did you think of Sarr?
I like him. I mean, he's very raw yet, still obviously
Right.
very young, but he.
I was pretty impressed with him.
Yeah, no, he shot it very well. He moves very well. He's a lot of length. I think he's very young and still trying to figure it out. But I do like his potential. I think he can be a very good player. Very lengthy, can run the floor, everything. Just has to figure it out. So I like him. But trying to think in the last year, who's a big man that people don't give enough credit to? I'm trying to think. For some reason, like Bam comes up to mind.
Gotcha.
Like people always give him enough credit for what he does for that team on both ends of the floor. Obviously, defensively, guarding 1 through 5, but offensively, he's almost like a playmaker for them and creates so many shots, opportunities with like the handoff and all the actions for Hero, Robinson, all these guys. So I think he gets recognition, but I think it could be
not enough
even more
probably.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, for that comes to mind that I can't think of.
Which language has better sounding swear words in your opinion? Is it English, Serbian, or French?
It's Serbian by far, and it's probably in the top worldwide languages.
They just sound, the swear words just sound the best.
Yes, like they're very, very hardcore, very. You can be very creative. So yeah, they're pretty bad.
When you got the technical, I remember you got a technical, and you said you don't know why you got a technical because you swore in Serbian, and there was no way he knew what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
He
in their
probably figured
defense,
it out.
yeah, in their defense, they're based on like the way I look when I curse in Serbian, and they probably knew I wasn't saying any nice words. So it's more so for my aggressiveness than the actual words.
If people don't know, your brother-in-law, Sasha Pavlovic, correct?
Yep.
Basketball player. He's with Celtics,
He was,
Cavs. He was all a lot of different teams.
but he was with the Cavs. He started in Utah, and then he was with the Cavs when they went to the finals in 07. He
Okay.
started
Did you ever
actually.
play him one-on-one?
No, actually, we never did. No.
Okay.
We
There
never
was
did.
no like to date my sister, you have to beat me one-on-one. There was never any of
No,
that.
no.
All right.
Me and her started dating before. Well,
Okay.
actually, he was already in the NBA, but I was a very young guy coming up. So.
Trivia question: are there more Bogdanoviches in the NBA or Zellers
Right now,
in the last 5 years?
Bogdanovic is right. I mean, I can
think
only
there
think
were
of
I think there
with
were
Cody
three
Zeller.
Zellers. I think there were
Wait.
3 Zellers.
Cody. Who else?
I don't know. They all look the same. I looked it up. I thought there were 3 Zellers at one point.
Really?
What's your late night go-to meal? I know you like late night dinners. What's your go-to meal?
Well, that's only after games. But after games, I'm a huge steak guy. So mainly, I probably go big ribeye. That's my go-to after games usually.
Pretend Orlando and Chicago never existed because obviously I know your heart's in both of those places and has been. Is there an NBA team? And I'm guessing probably because when you came to LA, is there an NBA team you always thought when you were overseas, that's the team I'd like to play for?
I mean, it wasn't much the Lakers because I wasn't a huge Kobe guy. I was more of a LeBron guy growing up.
Gotcha.
So, but because I was a big MJ guy growing up, obviously Chicago was one of them. Boston with the history was a big team. Probably say those two. I did when we played Orlando. I remember my first game we played Orlando. I was in Philly. I really liked the arena. I liked the fans, everything. You had Dwight and all those guys, and I for some reason, like I was like, oh, this would be a nice place to play it. And I thought in my mind, and well, next thing you know, that next summer I got traded there. So
Yeah, who would win in a dunk contest? Because today we were watching Modest do some crazy ass dunks. Modest, this is today, right now. Modest, Julian Phillips, or Zach LaVine?
I don't think Zach wants to jump as much to do dunks
Right.
now anymore.
But if he got called
So
out, I think he'd still
if
have
he
it.
got, I think, yeah, for sure he'd still have it. I know Modest is very lengthy and can jump, so he could do some crazy stuff. Between him and Julian, I might go Modest because he's young. Very into that right now. So I might go Modest. I think Zach would probably get a little bored because he's already won it too. So
Yeah. TV show that's a guilty pleasure that no one would think Vooch can't be watching this show.
I would say Friends, but I mean millions of people watch Friends. So I'm a little different one. The OC.
Okay, that's a
Love that
guilty pleasure
show.
one. And then I've asked this a couple times, and there's been some good answers. So the team plane goes down on a deserted island. Not PR or any of that, but of the players and staff that everyone knows of publicly. Who is the first eaten and who is the last survivor in your estimation?
The first eaten. That's a good question. Trying to think on the team. Who could be the first eaten? Tricky one. Trying to think. I go with the smaller guys for the small first. Ian, I might go.
Javon. Could be
Yeah, I
Javon.
might go
Small.
JC. He's
He is Chicago tough,
smaller
though.
guy. No, he is. He's true. He is very. But I can't. I can't. I was gonna maybe go one of the big men because we were slower to run away if we were getting chased by something. But usually they go for the smallest. Prey kind of makes most sense for. So they usually attack the weak link. So it looks like the smallest guy. So I might go JC. The last one to survive. Uh, hmm, Maybe Zach because he runs away from everything. I mean, he's fast, so he could run. He could run away from pretty much a
I
lot
will
of
say
stuff.
this: when I asked Zach this a couple years ago, first eaten, he said Stacey King. So there was that. All right.
Well, I focus on players. But yeah, if we
I
include
got you. I
coaches,
got you.
if we include coaches, there might be a couple coaches with some bad knees that might not be
They ain't
able to
getting
run
away.
very far away.
Last thing that Vooch, since you've watched the NBA, played in it, watched it, give me your top 5 big guys from 5 to 1 who you think was, in that
Like
top
ever,
5.
or that I've watched.
Ever that since you've been alive, that you've watched or played against.
Watched, okay. So that I've Jokic
Is 1.
We count Dirk as a big man.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Duncan.
There's 3.
Shaq. I'm very happy I never had to play against him. And gotta go Hakeem. I mean, I've watched Kareem a little bit. I mean, older tapes, so
Yeah,
maybe
that's
him.
that's different.
But I just haven't seen as much. I saw more of Hakeem. But yeah, those like Dirk, Jokic obviously played against both. Shaq obviously watched a lot of his games. So those 5s probably.
Pooch, thanks, my man. Appreciate the
Of
time
course,
you gave me.
no problem. Anytime.
I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. See, do you make a trip to San Antonio or no?
I'm going to take that one off. That
Yeah.
This November schedule. I mean, this is only year 13 for me of covering the NBA, but I don't ever remember a schedule that's been this brutal. It's been brutal.
Yeah, it was pretty. There was a lot of in and outs, which made it tough. But December is nice, so we can't complain.
December's nice.
Pretty good.
December's nice. So
can't complain.
I'll see you. I'll see you Friday in lovely Chicago.
Good.
All right, take care.
Sure.
Good luck tomorrow. All right, man.
Thanks,
Vooch.
Appreciate it.
Right.
Yep.
That was the Vooch. Outstanding. I don't even have to do a list because Vooch handled it for me. Top 5 big men that he's ever played against. Look, we're going to go on Cowley Island here. There's a reason out of all the players, Vooch was the first one I wanted on. And again, I'll go back to the times, it was 2 or 3 years in a row where I was covering Miami, and it was San Antonio, Oklahoma City 1 year, and then San Antonio. And just talking to Bosch, we get the media scrums with Bosch, and he was happy. He was happy. He just always struck me as a guy that was happy they were winning, but wasn't enjoying it. And then obviously years later, it kind of comes out of just how much he had to sacrifice. Forget the money. It wasn't about the money. I think they all kind of sacrificed some money initially, LeBron and Bosch, to come there and form the Heatles. But I think when you look at his numbers, I think he was like 23, 24 points a game his last year in Toronto. He goes to Miami, and I think his first year in Miami is 17 or 18 in that area. I may be off by a little, but those were numbers at the time. He's Hall of Fame, projected Hall of Fame. And while he got the rings out of that deal, I don't know if he ever got the enjoyment. So that's why I think I've always kind of defended. And he's not the only one. There's been other trios that have come together. I mean, the big guy is the one that's going to suffer. And so, whether it was going and doing other podcasts or just talking to fans on social media or doing radio interviews, I've always gone out of my way to talk about Vooch and defend Vooch. And there's times he hasn't played well, and we've called him out for that. But he knows that. I mean, he's very self-aware. But the one thing that I always say about him is, to me, he was always his toughest critic, like he said. And I still don't think people understand when you are used to being the man in a place, and then all of a sudden that you go to a different place and it's like you're starting from the ground zero, even though they're looking at the back of your basketball card and saying, look, these are the numbers. Well, why aren't you getting those numbers? Well, how can I get those numbers? I mean, this guy has to be happy. This guy has to be happy. So the big guy, to me, always suffers. That's why I wanted to have Vooch on first. Yes, people say I'm a big Vooch defender and a big Vooch stan. Don't give a damn. I will be, because I understand what he's done and how important he is for this team. I think, to a man, they all appreciate him way more than the Bulls fan base does. I think the coaching staff appreciates him. Obviously everyone knows the situation with he and Zach and Lonzo being trade rumors out there, and that's going to continue because that's kind of the temperature of the team. But he's always been a professional, and that's a great thing. And he's fun just to BS with. He's got 3 boys and has talked about coaching his boys because obviously his father coached him, and I've coached 2 of my sons, and we've talked about things like that and just the good and the bad of coaching your kids and stuff. So yeah, I'm always going to go to bat for a guy that I think's played his ass off and hasn't gotten the due respect from this fan base and everyone. Trade Vooch, not worth the money, not worth the contract, blah, 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 blah. Well, it'd be a big middle finger that I hope he can hold up if he makes Eastern Conference All-Star, because to me, there's not really many centers in the East playing better than him right now. And that includes Embiid and Bam, all of them. I mean, to me, right now, he's just playing as good a basketball as he's played. So good for you, Vooch. Way to middle finger all those doubters. So that's it for this week. Again, thank Vooch. Thank McGuff for doing a great job producing this thing. And as usual, I've got next.